Remember Boo from Monsters, Inc.? About yay high, big bright eyes, rosy cheeks, giggles galore. Kitty! That was me. I was Boo. By all accounts, I had all adults around me wrapped around my little finger. I was cute, I was charming, I was fun, I was funny, I was confident. I also used to weigh 30 pounds. Things change. For me, my Pixar era came to an end when I had to go to school and be around other children. Did you ever wonder why Boo's friends were monsters? My hair got bigger, my teeth got bigger, my attitude got bigger. I became Hermione Granger. And if we learned anything from Harry Potter, it's that precocious know-it-alls are super popular at school. I didn't understand kids, and they didn't understand me. And sometimes it was innocuous enough, like in kindergarten, when we were assigned to create a Santa Claus decoration for Christmas. Here's your construction paper, here are your safety scissors, here's your glue, go forth. After a couple of hours, the teachers took our Santa Clauses, put them on the ground to dry, and so we could admire them. And then there were 23 8-inch Santa Clauses and one 5-foot Santa Claus. And this is where I started giving the kids the side eye. She didn't say to make a miniature Santa. So either the kids were kind of dumb, or the teacher wasn't very clear. Like Hermione, I liked things being done a certain way, a proper way. And I cared a lot about things like justice and fairness and equality, and I was very hurt by cruelty, and I cared a lot. And I would see that, and I thought, why did I do a 5-foot Santa? And yeah, that's innocuous enough, but it wasn't always like that. Like in grade 2, the start of grade 2, I finally had a group of friends. Most of you are like, yeah, that's life. Not for some of us. I finally had a group of friends. It was tense, it was stressful, having to manage all the interrelations, my link to you, and your link to each other, and their link to the ebb and flow of this social net, the push and pull, constantly monitoring everything. And then morning recess, the leader of our group, with all her socio-political 6-year-old savvy, came to me, her second in command, and said, Dominique, this group is too big. We can't have fun like we used to. We're gonna need to figure out how to fix this. Not a problem, rational person. I know how to fix things, I got this. By noon, I'd figured it out. I found the 5 people in our group who were actually from grade 1, and they were the newcomers. And what a perfect solution. I showed up to them, gave them their pink slip. Thank you so much for your contributions, you've been great. It's not about you or downsizing. You can start your own thing, you're gonna be amazing. I'll see you in the schoolyard. And the 5 of them walked away crying. But back to school, and by afternoon recess, the group came back to me, pointing their little fingers and said, you're out. And I remember thinking, well, that's dumb. Now you're just down 1 person. Your group is still too big. And I could give you so many of these stories. These were ongoing themes, not just in elementary school, but as my hair and my teeth and my attitude got bigger, and then I kind of grew into them, I also grew into these descriptions of myself. Because if there's one thing I learned in grade 4, it was common denominators. And as somebody who wanted to make the world a better place, but seemed to always be leaving places worse off, I realized I'm the common denominator. I was called insensitive. I was called a bad team player. I was called not understanding, rude, a bitch, a cunt, by family, by friends, at work. And slowly, 1 year at a time, society and school and work killed my Hermione Granger the same way the little kids had killed my Boo. In my late 30s, I'd kind of had given up. Did you ever think whatever happened to Hermione Granger after the book? Ignore the epilogue, it was terrible. What happens to Hermione Granger after the book, when society erodes her like that? good news. And at the risk of being an insensitive bitch, because I have been called that before, something really good happened, a pandemic. I was just off at another burnout, and finally, I had a built-in excuse to not go to your thing tonight and be alone. I had a built-in excuse to schedule things and have them end so I could go be alone. I had a built-in excuse to go read and be alone and do a puzzle and be alone and work when I felt like it and be alone and do puzzles and be alone and scroll on Instagram and be alone and scroll more on Instagram and be alone and go to bed and be alone and wake up and go back to bed and have another nap and be alone and then maybe have another nap and be alone and scroll on Instagram a bit more and learn about ADHD and be alone and learn how to make bread on Instagram and then be alone. And it's possible being alone that much was maybe not the greatest thing that happened to me. But I would argue that the worst thing that happened is that social isolation stopped. And then I had to go be with people again. And I wasn't ready for that. And my productivity plummeted. And if there was one thing I had learned off of Instagram is I probably had ADHD, right? So I went to see a neuropsychologist. And she said, "Why did you come?" And I said, "I think I have ADHD. Drugs, please." Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse, I don't care. I'm not picky. And she's like, "Okay, we'll do an evaluation. Here's a pro tip. If you're going through a stressful time in your life, go get a neuropsych eval. They put you in a little room and it's quiet and they give you sheets of paper and a pencil and you just do like math puzzles and word puzzles and memorization puzzles. And the person who administers the tests always tells you you're doing a great job and they're really proud of you and wow, they've never seen anybody test like this before. And they were just so easy to please. I was like, boo all over again. And then they're like, wow, you have like a super high IQ. And I was like, Hermione Granger. It was so good. And I just wanted it to go forever and ever and ever. But they didn't. Eventually they're like, okay, let's talk about your results. All right. So I met with Dr. Zani in her office. And she said to me, well, you have all the traits of ADHD, but I'm not ready to give you a prescription. Yeah, scoff. She says, because I think before we address your ADHD, we really need to talk about your sensory processing disorder, your PTSD, and your autism. That's like basically how she announced all this. And I was like, they've put medical tags to being a bitch. And I started going through different moments in my life with that lens. I wasn't a bitch, I had autism. I wasn't insensitive, I was being triggered. I wasn't, a cunt. I was just tired that day. And so I've been thrown for a loop because now I have an explanation, but not a solution. I know a lot more about myself, but I still don't have a Ritalin prescription.